just launched a new Procreate bundle, and it is called Celestial Lettering Bundle. And I wanted to take some time and do some YouTube videos to show you how to use all the brushes and stamps. So let's see here, the Celestial one. So you get 3 new brushes and then all these stamps, which makes really quick work of your lettering. So today I'm going to show you how to make this Reach for the Stars piece. And we'll take it step by step. I'll do one thing at a time and kind of, you can pause the video and watch it. I would suggest you watch it all the way through and then maybe go back through and do each section and pause in between steps so that you can do it while I'm doing it. Now you don't have to use the same phrase that I am doing, but you can if you want to, but this will get you comfortable with how to do the 3D shadows and use the stamps and a bunch. Whenever I do a piece, I tend to use a lot of layers. This one is not organized. I normally name them and organize them, but we'll walk through all of that. So all you need today is an iPad with Apple Pencil capabilities, the Procreate app installed and updated, and then of course my Celestial lettering kit. And in the link on the YouTube video version of this, I will give you a sample you can download to reference while you work, and also a link to the brushes if you have not purchased those already. All right, so let's get started. The first step is you're going to open Procreate and tap the plus symbol and just go ahead and click screen size. We'll work with that for this piece. And then I sketched out my lettering, of course, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pull that in and we will work from there. So the brush you're going to want to use for this one is the Celestial Block. And this one I wanted to start with because this is a brush that you need to use in a specific way to get clean edges because it is squared off. But it's one of my most used brushes. If you look at my Instagram, I've been doing a ton with it lately. So I'm gonna tap my layer and rename it Sketch. That's my base layer for my lettering. And then I'm gonna do a new layer and rename it Main Lettering. Now, with that layer selected, we are going to take our Celestial Block brush and the black color. If you downloaded the brushes, you also got this color palette here. I did not include just black and white. That's actually a light gray. So you can go ahead and just grab black from your color palette. And then over on the slider, you can adjust your brush size. I'm going to, let's see, I'm at about 20% with that. And then we're just going to trace our lettering. So the key with this one, to get the clean edges, you really want to press down and then move. And if you hold it for a second, you get a nice clean line. If you rush, you'll get funky lines, like, you know, it looks, if I zoom in, can you see how that's not clean? And that just means you're going too fast. So you just want to really be intentional with pressing down and then moving. And you can always go back in with your eraser and a monoline brush, any monoline brush, and just kind of clean up the edges even more if you want to. But if you go slow, I really like to keep that texture in this brush, and that's why I made it. So I will go through and trace this lettering, and that will be step 1. And then we will move on to some of the more fun things. So if you need to pause this, pause real quick and create your lettering using the Celestial Block brush. All right, 2 quick things to note here. When you are doing letter O's, if you, let me start on a new layer to show you this. So if you start, bring it around and hold it, it will create a perfect O for you and you can adjust the size. So that's one thing to note. If you mess up, 2-finger tap will take you back and erase what you just did. And again, if you're struggling with getting it the top without getting a stamp effect and not a clean line, try holding your pen perpendicular to your page, pressing down and then going, and that's what will always give you that nice clean top. All right, now we will move on to step 2. All right, so we have our main lettering created, and now I can see on my reference sheet, I want to move on to doing that nice deep shadow. So all you're gonna do is take the layer that your lettering is on, swipe left and click duplicate. Then tap the bottom layer. Let's rename it. So we're gonna call this our shadow. Actually, it's not really a shadow. It's more like our 3D. So let's put 3D layer because we're gonna add another shadow. So for that, with that selected, come up here and grab your magic wand tool and select motion blur. And now you're going to, you can see in my example, the shadow is pulling this way. So you're just gonna tap on your screen and pull your shadow. And this one I went with a pretty deep one. So I'm gonna stop at about 33%, and you wanna make note of that. It doesn't have to be exact, just roughly. And then you're gonna kind of slide it into place a little. Now pick any other color. I have this dark pink color from the Celestial palette right here. So I'm gonna select that, and then this layer, you're gonna tap it, do select, fill layer. And that is not very solid. So we wanna do that about 5 times. So I go through select, fill layer, select, fill layer, select, fill layer, select, fill layer. And if it's still a little rough, you can do it a few more times around the edges. And you can see I even made that bigger than it was this time. So if you're unhappy with it, just delete it and make a lower fill. So let's go back and do that real quick. So we duplicate our layer, rename it 3D, and then with that layer selected, I'm gonna tap the magic wand tool and do motion blur. And this time I'll stop around 25. 2-finger tap to restart it. Maybe even, yeah, I'll stop at 25. And then I'll kind of slide it into place. We'll touch it up later. So again, tap your layer, select, fill layer, and repeat select and filling the layer as many times as you need to get a nice solid 3D shadow. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now I'm just gonna adjust it so it's more in place. You can see that it just kind of slides right in there. And now what we wanna do is make each part a different color. Now everybody does this a different way. Some people don't like to use alpha lock. I do, so that's how I do it. So I take, actually first make a copy of that layer, duplicate it down here and turn it off and rename that shadow because we're gonna use that in the next step. All right, so while you're on your 3D layer, tap it and then click alpha lock. And now we can color right on this layer. So you can use any monoline brush to color with. In some of my past bundles, I've done monoline coloring brushes, but you can use any monoline brush that came standard with Procreate. So I'm just gonna make it a little bigger, and then you can see I'm just gonna alternate each color. So for the second one, I colored it purple. So just color it right in, and because you have alpha lock on, you can't color outside your lettering. So there's that, and then the next one I did this nice blue color. And right now I'm using a big brush, but then I'll kind of go in later and with a smaller one and kind of perfect those little pieces so that it lines up nicely. So go throughout your whole piece for that one and go ahead and just keep alternating colors and until you're totally done with your layer and it looks like mine does right there. And when we come back, we'll start to change that layer to white, add that nice shadow back there, the moon, and all the stamps, and then you'll be done. Quick tip here for an easy way to change colors. You could either just do all the pink letters at one time and then all the purple, but when I go in to adjust and touch up, I use this little box here. It's the color selection tool, so I can quickly switch colors without opening my color palette. So that's just a handy little thing that you can do, and you can drag it around and grab any color you want to grab. Okay, we're looking good here. Let's go ahead and add our nice dark background color. So I'm gonna go all the way down to the bottom here and click the plus sign to add a new layer, and I'm gonna name this background. I know you can use the background one right here, but I just find this easier to mess with, so I always add my own background layer. And then I use this really dark navy at the top of the color palette here, and then you can just drag and drop that. And now you can see our reach for the stars main lettering doesn't look that good, so we're just gonna change it to white. So open up your layers panel, select the main lettering, select your magic wand tool, and then click hue, saturation, and brightness. Now this is the easy way to do it. You could also color it white, but I just swipe it right up and adjust the brightness. And now we've got it, whoops, I undid it. So that is done. And I wanna make it, let's see if I left plenty of room. I wanna make my lettering just a little smaller than the background so I have more room for the star details. So I'm going to select all three of those layers by swiping right and then clicking the arrow tool so I can select it and just make it a tiny bit smaller. Okay, now back to that shadow layer we made earlier, go ahead and turn that back on. We're going to make it offset of what we did before. And remember, we went with our motion blur to around 25%. So we're gonna use that again. Last time we dragged towards this corner of the screen. This time we'll drag towards the opposite corner. So I'm gonna grab that motion blur, and let's see, I went roughly like that. So that way I'm gonna slide it to the same, about 25. And now it needs to be filled in a really dark color. So I'm gonna grab black, and then we're gonna go back to that select fill until it's nice and solid. Okay, and then slide it right into place. Now it's really dark right now and we're gonna mess with the opacity, but for now just leave it because we need to add our moon and a little bit of brightness so we can see it better. So right above the background layer, click plus and rename that layer Moon. Come back to your brush panel and your celestial brushes and come down here and grab the moon stamp. I created this one so it has some variation in it. We are going to grab that second blue shade there and adjust the size. So that's too small. Basically I went to full size. So I'm gonna drag that into place. And I might, if you want to play with the opacity, you can tap the N on any layer and mess with how bright or not bright it is. I think that looks pretty good. And if you want to do a different color, you can of course pick any color you want to pick. I'm gonna leave that for right now. I might mess with it later. So above that layer, you're gonna add one more layer with the plus sign, and you can just rename this, we'll call it a cloud. Now you can do this with any gradient brush. There's plenty of gradient brushes that come standard in Procreate. So, but I also have one if you have my creative lettering bundle in there. So I'm just gonna grab that, change my color to white, and adjust the size. And I just kind of draw a little cloud back here. And you see how that makes, it makes the shadow pop a little bit more, but we're gonna grab that N on that layer and change it so it's just maybe really subtle, maybe 9% there, and then go back to that black shadow and do the same thing. That's an N right, tap the N and change the opacity so it's nice and subtle but still gives your lettering some depth. So I'm gonna go with about 17%. All right, so that is done and we are ready to move on to adding the stars. All right, adding the stars is the fun part, and I love making stamps because it makes quick work of my lettering, especially for shapes I use a lot. I've even made stamps of my own lettering. So like if I use I'll show you real quick here. So add a new piece. I made my own stamps, and there's lots of YouTube videos on how to make your own stamps. So Down here, let's see, I was gonna do this as a bundle and then Procreate released the option to do type. So I didn't end up doing that, but I still use these a lot because it's my own lettering. I turned it into stamps. So if I wanna type out a word, I can just, you know, quickly grab different stamps and, you know, adjust the size and make really quick work of my lettering if I'm just doing a piece for Instagram or for the blog or even for a client, and then, you know, I can move those or do them on separate layers. But anyway, that's just a random tip for the stamps. Back to the task at hand. All right, so we want to, of course, because we're so in love with layers, create one more layer with the plus sign, and we're gonna name this one Glowing Stars. And over here, back in the Celestial panel, we're gonna grab either one of the glowing stars. We're gonna do a few of each. So I'm gonna grab Glowing Star 2 first, and I'm gonna grab, which yellow do I wanna use? I think I'm gonna grab this yellow. And then that looks like a pretty good size. So I'm just gonna do 3 of those. One here, and one here. And since they're on their own layer, they're really easy to mess with. So if you grab this tool right here, you can circle it and then click the direct selection arrow tool and you can kind of adjust it so it's just like you want it. So I usually do that a little bit just to kind of make it exactly how I want it. And then I'm going to grab the other glowing star tool and just kind of randomly throw some in here. I wanted that to be a little bigger, so I'll sporadically throw in some big ones, maybe one more there, and then change the size, make it smaller, do some smaller ones. Oops. And then make some even smaller ones and sprinkle a few of those in. Oh, and you can see right here, I got too many stamps. So I'm just gonna grab my eraser tool, erase that. And that happens if you're moving too fast and you didn't do just one stamp, but easy fix. Erase that out and then go back in and restamp. And you can kind of go through and add as many or little as you want. Oh, I did that here too. Just erase it right out. And maybe I need 1 or 2 more stamps over here. All right, and now we're gonna add a few more. So add 1 more layer here and rename that one Shooting Stars. And this just kind of keeps everything nice and organized and easy to edit if you ever wanna come back in and maybe change colors. So I'm gonna grab my Shooting Star stamp and I'm gonna do 1 there, 1 there, and it's okay that it's overlapping and 1 there in the middle, because we're gonna go back in and touch it up. So again, take your, I forget what that tool's called, your like selection tool here, and you circle around it and then press. And you can down here, you can flip it vertically, horizontally, or you can just manually adjust it. So I'm just gonna kind of slide that into place. And same with that one, I'm gonna make that one a little smaller by pushing my fingers together and adjust that. And same thing with my final one here. Just kind of adjust it so I'm happy with its placement. I'll leave it right there. And then I realized, oh, you know what? I really need to go back and maybe add some glowing stars here in the middle to balance it out. So to do that, I just go back to my glowing stars layer and glowing star stamp and my yellow, and maybe just add 1 here and there. Kind of add a few more to balance everything out. And again, that's just your artistic decision and personal preference, how you go about that. And we have 1 more step to add just a little more depth. So grab your background layer, click plus, and we'll rename that one Open Stars. Okay, and for those, I think we'll do, Let's do this light blue. So I'm gonna grab the open star, which is called Star Tool. Star 2, can't speak this morning. And I'm just gonna add in some of those. And these are really subtle, but they do add some more interest and depth. So I just kind of randomly place those around, and again, play with the sizing so that you're not using all the same size. And do the same thing with Star 4, which is the open one. And throw those randomly around. And now if you want them to be brighter, all you need to do is, move my layer. Drag your layer left and duplicate it. And can you see, if I turn that off and on, how it brightens it? So just add an extra layer, and then you can tap it and merge down so it's one layer. And then if you feel like it's too bright, you can tap your in and adjust the opacity so it's just how you want it. And again, you can go in, and if I don't like the direction that stamp is because I have it set to random, I can just select, twist it, and then you've got your finished piece. Now let's say you decide, I don't really like the color of my moon now that I'm done. Let me try something else. Super simple. All you have to do is take your layer, have a new color chosen in the color palette, click select, and fill layer. And let's see if I like that color better, and maybe I'm gonna reduce the opacity so that it's not quite as opaque. And then you have your piece complete. So that is one of the ways you can use the block brush. And I'll have another tutorial coming showing you how to use it in a circle form with this circle grid stamp that I gave you. And that is, if you looked at the promo pics for these, that was this piece. So I did that with a circle grid in the back and kind of kept my lettering confined to that circle and use that same tool. So I will teach you about that one in a coming tutorial. I'm gonna try to post about one a week, maybe more often if I have time, and teach you how to do all of the promo pieces that I did for this bundle using the various pieces, how you can make a quick background using the, this was with the Stardust stamp down here, and how to letter on photos, how to use the monoline brush that I did, and also how to get a watercolor effect with these, because I gave you a free watercolor paper background, and I'll teach you how to kind of give that a watercolor look and how to use brushes as stamps to kind of give that same effect on your stars as well. So that will be coming. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, or keep your eye on the blog or my emails to get notified as those new videos go live. And I would love to see your work. If you tag me on Instagram, I am @byDawnNicole.